new audience. I'm the network officer for GLEN, which makes me travel a little bit around and give an idea of what we're doing to people, and it's always a bit of a challenge, but today I'm kind of in a very easy position because I have the feeling that what I'm going to tell you now is kind of summing up the day so far. In the morning we've been introduced to naked guys scratching their heads, and that's pretty much the audience we're trying to attract. So every year we have lots of naked guys and girls. And then we train them on performing activities that are similar to what we've seen in the showcase, to then ultimately make them become little Rodriguez's and Elaine's and live a very sustainable and responsible life. But I will just try to do that in the GLEN speak, and if you get lost, just keep this image in your mind, it might be helpful. So what is GLEN? We are a joint non-profit, politically independent initiative of 10 organizations from old and new member states of the European Union. And the interesting thing is here that it's old and new member states. It was founded in 2004 with the idea of bringing together the perspective on development and development education from the old member states to the new member states, and have a mutual learning process on how to go on with development and global education. Because back then, many of the new member states had been, well, recipients of development assistance, if you want, so only a few decades ago, and we thought it might be a good idea to share knowledge in order not to repeat mistakes that have been happening before. And above that, we are a network of civil society organizations and committed young people, so we're a network of organizations bringing together young people who are involved in global education. Our participants are aged between 21 and 30, and we have members in 10 different European countries. And important is also that we are not a legal institution, we are just a loose network. So here's where you can see our members. I mentioned before it's old and new member states of the EU. For the old member states we have Germany and France, so there's definitely improvement on that side, or room for improvement on that side. For the new member states we have the Baltic states of Estonia and Latvia. Going south we have Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Slovenia, Hungary, and then very down south, Malta. So those are our current 10 member countries. Our aims are, and now comes like the nice words that we tend to use in these contexts, to contribute to a better understanding of global interdependencies. Global interdependencies is a GLEN word for the nice way of realizing that local actions can have a global impact. Fair and sustainable ways of living, which is pretty much self-explanatory. A responsible development policy, this is something that developed throughout the last few years, that it's not so much about understanding global education as a promotion for development policy, but to also kind of find ways of how to make development policy more sustainable, more responsible, and more centered on a local level. As what Matthias explained, it's always focused on the south, but we're trying to also bring the focus to the north. And finally, North-South relations based upon equal partnership and mutual respect. We are having 10 member organizations in Europe, but our participants are also going to the Global South for a 3-month internship. And this is where we are trying to establish equal North-South relations in the sense of they are not going there as development aid practitioners or as development experts, but they're going there in order to learn from the South. So that takes us to the activities that we're doing. Well, first of all, we're building connections between individuals and organizations as well. So I mentioned the 10 member organizations already. They have kind of learning partnerships with each other, and they exchange best practices. But we are also having it on a very individual level by sending out about 100 participants every year, and they are trained together, they are learning together, they are matched up in so-called tandems, where you have a person from an old member state going out together with a person from a new member state, so that you have the inter-European exchange that's then taken down to the Global South. And So it's on both levels, like individuals and organizations. On top of that, we are raising public awareness and understanding of global development issues. When our participants come back from their internship in the Global South, they are asked to perform an action that will kind of fulfill these criteria. That is either way targeting the public with a certain topic, or that is kind of more on an educational level, creating understanding for certain connections. And we do that by a training and experience program for young Europeans to become global education multipliers. Now, what does that mean? What we do is that we offer a so-called GLEN multipliers training cycle. This cycle lasts pretty much a year, and it has like several elements, whereas the most important is training on global education. Then we also have a small element of preparation of actions and also the internship in the Global South. And then it goes further with like very practical experience of what it means to be a multiplier and also what it means to be down in the South. So we usually start our cycle in April with the first multipliers training seminar, where all participants of that particular year meet, where they meet their tandem partners, where they meet the whole seminar group, and where they get inputs on global interdependencies, global education and the like. Then they meet again in June for a second seminar. In between, they are asked to develop small actions that they're going to perform on the seminar. And then they go out, usually between July and November, for their 3 months internship to the Global South. After that, the cycle is not over, because upon their arrival, they are asked to carry out a global education activity, which is what we call the global education practice phase. And depending on when they come back, this starts in November and lasts until March, when all of our participants meet again for a third seminar, which is called RENEW. RENEW is an abbreviation for Review, Engagement and Networking. And they share the experience that they had in the Global South. They have a look at the actions that they carried out. They evaluate their actions together. And there's lots of space for them to network for new actions and activities, either on a local or on a European level. The participants that we have receive a scholarship for the entire cycle. So we're also trying to not only offer something to people who usually already have the chance or tendency to go somewhere else, but we're also trying to attract people who are financially not that well equipped. And last year we had about 105 participants. It will be about the same number this year, but we will only know after this weekend, because we're in the middle of our participant selection for this cycle, which is going to start in April then. So on these seminars, which are kind of the main part of the cycle, we're training our participants in 3 overarching areas, which are global education and global interdependencies. So they learn methods on how to use global education. They're getting input in certain topics that connect to global interdependencies. So be it issues that have to do with sustainability, with climate change, with trade, all of these things. Then our second big overarching topic that we train our participants on is personal development, which is mostly connected to reflecting your personal actions, reflecting the way how you've been growing up. We have a big part of our training that is based on power structures, privileges, racism. That's also the part where we, for instance, use the code of conduct on images and messages, which is a very concrete tool that we hand out to our participants in order to understand what responsible action actually means. And as a third and very important part, it's the networking and engagement. Well, the networking pretty much comes by itself, but we also really want to motivate them to stay active and to become multipliers, and to not just sit down, relax, and get an input on something, but to also act on it. Our seminars are facilitated by former GLEN participants, so this is kind of also how we try to keep a little bit of sustainability in our program, that people do not just undergo the 1-year cycle and then leave. And we're using participative methodologies, and it's a peer-to-peer learning approach. So our trainers are not experts, but they are learners as well, and it's all very learner-centered and very open. And what's also important is that these seminars, although they are taking place before our participants leave for the Global South, are not focused on preparation for a stay abroad. We do that. They do get kind of intercultural trainings and info about the country where they're going to. But our main message in the seminar and our main aim is that participants understand global education as being an actor of civil society and becoming active in that kind of field. So, having talked about internships and the Global South already, this is just kind of a short overview of where we're having internships in 2012. So you can see it's mostly based in Africa, lots of them in East, so in Anglophone, in the English-speaking part of Africa. Quite a few of them also in the French-speaking part of Africa, and then we kind of move over to Caucasus and Asia. And interestingly enough, one program this year is in the Ukraine. So Global South is a flexible concept, I suggest. And just to make it a little bit more concrete, what our internships are about, like it's a very diverse field. As I said, we're trying to attract people with a different background and with different skills. Lots of them are located somewhere in the environmental or agricultural sector, such as in South Africa, which is a program or a project that has been running since 2004, which is very successful, and which is a cooperation with the Fair Trade Association that does training and advocacy for rooibos fair trade farmers. Then we have environmental education combined with promoting usage of traditional knowledge in Benin, which is a good example of that our participants do not go somewhere to profess something, but they also go somewhere to learn something, such as usage of traditional knowledge. In Kyrgyzstan, we're having a project called Support to Summer Schools on Life Skills and Farm Economics, which is a pilot in the sense of it's not only going to be our participants going there, but they will be matched up with an intern from the Kyrgyz organization, so they're actually going to be 3 people. And like that, we would like to kind of support the equal eye-to-eye level exchange between North and South a little bit more. And then finally, India would be an example for people who do not come from the educational sector or who do not have a background in agriculture. But in India, we're having a few of our documentary or filmmaking projects that are targeted at people who actually learn this as a trade and who have not underwent university education. When our participants come back, they are required to carry out global education actions, and I brought you 3 examples, which also kind of show the development within GLEN and the understanding of global education within GLEN. In 2006 and 2007, we had a big campaign called Horizons, which was a hitchhiking tour across Europe for global responsibility. In 2006, it was focused on the Millennium Development Goals. In 2007, it was focused on the trade agreements, and it was pretty much just a bunch of young people starting in Latvia, Riga, hitchhiking across the entire continent, talking to people along the way, having events and festivals and discussion rounds, and collecting statements from random people that they met, and bringing these statements to Strasbourg, to the politicians, and saying, hello, act on either way the Millennium Development Goals or the trade agreements that were being decided in 2007. So these were the years where campaigning was a very important element of our work. And as you can see, we are not campaigning any longer. I mean, although Horizons was successful, we decided to put the focus a little bit more on the local level and not on the big policy influencing part, but we then started asking our participants to act within their own communities, to develop small actions that are easily accessible. And an example of that would be a board game that has been developed by 2 participants, which is about the system of microfinance credits, thereby also explaining global interdependencies. And the good thing about it is, since it's a board game, it can be used independent from the 2 people who developed it. So they kind of just created an educational tool for schools. And this is what is still going on, like all the participants are doing their small, locally based action. But this year we decided to go a little bit bigger again, and we chartered a sailing boat, and we will go sailing for sustainability in summer 2012, which is kind of tied to the Rio+20 conference. It's also taking place at the same time. But the focus is a little bit more on giving global education seminars on a ship, which is a very special place to have a seminar. and then taking the ideas that have been developed on the ship to the local communities. We'll be sailing up from Poland to Finland, so it's up the Baltic coasts, and we'll be stopping in small, sleepy coastal towns and have discussions about sustainability, professing it with methods and tools of global education. And in order to make this all a little bit more visible, I collected statements from 3 participants. So it's always nice to get like the perspective of people who are actually inside. I will not read them out to you because I suspect you can read them yourselves. I'll just kind of summarize the interesting things they're saying. So Simona, for instance, she's been with us since 2006 and she has not left ever since. So we're really, really happy to have her. And she points out that when she was applying for it, she was thinking that this is about helping and that this is about development work. But then through GLEN, she understood that it is not so much about the South, but it's about you yourself and about being self-critical about yourself and about becoming responsible for your actions and not always focusing things on the South, but realizing that there's huge potential in Europe as well. Then we have Judith, who was a participant last year and who is very much focusing on interactive methods or on participatory methods that we're using and how it makes like serious global issues more accessible for people out there, and that it's also very much about the small steps and not about the big actions. And then finally we have Adam, who is a little bit our Rodriguez, who was first working in public administration and didn't find any kind of sense in that any longer, and then through GLEN kind of changed his way and his job and is very much in favor of the idea of active citizenship and stopping to criticize things but starting to act. So that is just kind of a short glimpse into what kind of people we are dealing with every year. And this is where I would like to thank you for your attention, and feel free to contact me. My email address is ann@glen-europe.org, or have a look at our website. It's updated periodically with the stuff that we're doing. And I also put publications on the table there, so if you're interested, feel free to get in contact, especially if you feel like going sailing with us this summer. We're really happy about having an Irish perspective on the sailing boat as well. Thanks very much.